Hi there, this is Chris, Chap in the Cap Motor Legends. Now today I'm going to talk to you about our recent visit to the International Motorcycle Trade Fair called EICMA. It's held in Milan. Every year at the beginning of November, we head off to EICMA, the International Trade Fair in Milan, to meet with suppliers and to find out what's new for the coming season. Now, this is a fabulous show. In fact, the first days of the show, the first 2 days of the show are exclusive to press and the trade. The next 4 days are for the general public. And the event is in every way an impressive one. This year, the show was spread out over 10 halls, many of which are large enough to swallow the NEC show twice over. Some people, of course, would be disappointed that at EICMA there's no car boot sale area, and I'm pretty sure that at EICMA no one has ever offered to polish my shoes. Anyway, the food is pretty good, the cappuccinos are excellent, but if you do decide to visit, bring your most comfortable shoes because you're going to be in for a lot of walking. Now, right now, as we record this video, just after visiting EICMA, November 2024, the motorcycle industry is in somewhat of the doldrums. Not just here, but throughout Europe as well. Motorcycle sales are down almost everywhere. Here in the UK, motorcycle dealerships are closing down at an unprecedented rate, and the same goes for clothing retailers. It's estimated that this year alone, more than 50 independent shops have closed their doors. Now, it has taken a few years for EICMA to build itself up again after COVID, but even so, this year, lots of the clothing brands who have historically attended the show did not take stands. So I'm talking about brands such as Rucker, Shark, Daytona, Segura, Bering, Machner. I didn't see, well, in fact, I know that Roker didn't have a stand. Helston's weren't there, they normally are. Star Martin wasn't at the show. I've never been to the show when Star Martin weren't there. And I didn't see stands for Falco, Fuel or Pando. There were many others, I'm sure. Nonetheless, many of the brands that we do deal with were at the show. Now, in lots of cases, we had seen many of the new styles that these companies are going to be introducing for 2025, but we hadn't always seen all the colorways in a particular product. And in some cases, we'd only seen very early pre-production samples. So there were still a lot of brands that we wanted to visit. Anyway, let's look at the stands that we went on to with a view to telling you about some of the stuff that's going to be new for the coming year. Held is a brand that for various reasons is not that well known here in the UK. Certainly not as well known as I think it should be, although many people are aware of their gloves, of course. And this is a shame because the gear that these guys produce really is first class. Now, the way we see it, Rucker and CLIM sit head and shoulders above just about all the other brands out there. In the middle of the market sit brands like, I suppose, Richter, Bering, Halvarsons, Revit, Machner, Dainese, and so on. But in our view, Held sits neatly between these two clusters of brands. Held is a third-generation family-owned business. There's no venture capital funding involved. This is a company that's not in a rush. Held do things the right way. And in this respect, I suppose they're very Germanic. They don't cut corners, which is one of the reasons that their suits, for example, come in a wider range of sizes than anybody else's. For next year, we're planning on taking on quite a few new styles from Held. There's potentially a brand new Gore-Tex Dropliner suit that wasn't at the show, unfortunately. There's a new leather suit that replaces the Cosmo and Devolo combination, although again, it wasn't on their stand. What there was the new Hakuna Matata, excuse me, which comes with a removable waterproof liner, and the suit looked fabulous. We saw the new Sambia summer glove, and there's an interesting new jacket that's half leather. I think it's got leather sleeves and an armored denim body. The style won't be for everybody, but it really is a very comfortable jacket. Now, we haven't really offered Nolan helmets before. In fact, we've been wanting to take on the brand, but we wanted to wait until their entire range became 2206 compliant. Well, that's now happened. The brand also happens to have moved to a new distributor that will be much better placed to support UK retailers. So for 2025, we very much hope to be taking on a number of new Nolan styles. There's a flip over helmet as opposed to a flip up helmet that goes up against the Scorpion, but also the new Shark when it does get released early next year. We'll be offering Nolan's flip up helmet. It's got 3 shell sizes and offers the facility to make changes to both the cheeks and the skull cap. It's still, in our view, no near-tech, but it will come in at about £100 less than the Shuey. We'll also be taking on their N70. It's got a removable chin bar, but unlike the recently announced Shuberth J2, the helmet is both P and J rated. We kind of fell out of love with the TCX brand a few years ago, and so we stopped offering the boots. We didn't like some of the commercial practices introduced by the new owners, basically that's done easy. We also reckon the brand had lost its way in terms of design. They replaced some great styles with some styles that were, in our view, not so great. It kind of felt to us as though they were producing boots to make a statement rather than protect riders. But the times, they are a-changing. And so in 2025, we'll be dipping our toes back into TCX's waters. We'll be reintroducing some of their hardy perennials, but we also hope to offer some of the new styles, a number of which we came across in Milan. Back when I first got into motorcycling, many years ago, I was very much a Dainese fanboy, although the Dainese of today is a very different brand to the brand it was back then. Back then, Dainese was driven by a passion, and every single piece they produced seemed to be a kind of work of art. These days, Dainese sometimes feels more rapacious than one would want ideally of a business partner, but there are still some gems to be found in their collection. On their stand, we came across a lovely looking suit with a removable waterproof liner, although apparently that's not a totally new suit. We got to see a laminated suit called the Mangan that ticks all the right boxes, and it's certainly a very comfortable suit. We found some new gloves we really liked too. Truth be told, we blow kind of hot and cold with Dainese, but I can see us doing more business with the Italian brand in 2025. Some of the new stuff, I've got to say, looks very nice. We like Shuberth, we really do, but they are not always mad about us. We were the whistleblowers with the rather disappointing C4, but the way we see it, if it hadn't been so flawed, there wouldn't have been a whistle to blow. They were also not very happy more recently when we didn't wax sufficiently lyrical about their new and not inexpensive carbon C5. Now, as a company, we are not huge carbon fans. Okay, so carbon fibre is lighter, but does that really make much of a difference on a touring helmet? And of course, the comms capability on the carbon C5 is much reduced, so you end up paying, in some ways, a lot more for a bit less. There wasn't a lot on the Shuberth stand that was new to us, although it was good to see all of the new colours on the J2 up close. Now, this new helmet represents a slightly challenging proposition from our perspective, as it's only homologated as an open face helmet. Logically, the thin, removable chin bar on the J2 will add a degree of extra protection, but in testing for 2206, the chin bar did not meet all the requirements for a full-face helmet, and so the helmet is only J-rated, it's not P-rated, so it's not approved as a full-face helmet. So whilst the J2 is almost certainly safer to wear than a traditional open-face helmet, we as a company need to be very careful about making claims that cannot be supported in terms of protection. We got to see some great new colourways for the C5 and the E2 as well, including some fantastic globe designs for the E2. Look lovely. But what was plain to see at the show was Shuberth's glee at stealing a march over Shuey with their new arrangement to offer Cardo as well as Senna integrated comms units for their helmets. But for various reasons, which I'll go on to explain later, we suspect that Shuey's marketing advantage could be short-lived. For 2025, we'll not just be taking on Nolan as a new brand, we'll be doing more Scorpions as well. Now, we've already got their drop-down sun visor-equipped ADF 9000 Adventure helmet and their Exotech Evo Pro flip-over helmet on the shelf. But we'll also be taking on their GT Air Challenger, and that helmet is a helmet called the Exo GT SP Air. Of course, it's not in any way, in our view, a credible challenger to the Shuey, but it is cheaper, and for many, that's going to make it an attractive proposition. Now, we ventured onto the Shuey stand at EICMA knowing that there wouldn't be much to see. As we've already told everybody that somewhat unusually, there won't be a single new helmet from Shuey at all in 2025, the next Shuey helmet we are going to see will not come through until perhaps the spring of 2026. Now, by rights, the next helmet released by the Japanese company should be a replacement for the Hornet Adventure helmet. We have to admit that when we first heard that this helmet wouldn't be coming through until 2026, we were a little surprised, because that means that we'll be without a Shuey Adventure helmet for a good 18 months, and that really is rather strange. But I'm sure one day we'll learn the reasons for this. There must be some reason for it that we haven't been told about. And so the only thing to look at on the Shuey stand was some new colours for existing models, most of which we hope obviously to see released here in the UK at some point. But the most interesting thing we learned about Shuey at the show didn't come to our attention on the Shuey stand, but rather on the Cardo one. There we witnessed a number of Shuey and Cardo personnel posing for the cameras, clearly in celebration of a collaboration of some significance. Personally, we reckon this could only have been the conclusion of an agreement for Cardo to supply integrated comms units to Shuey for their SRL-equipped helmets. And that has got to be good news for the Japanese brand, because until they can offer Cardo, they are going to lose a lot of sales to Shuey. We really admire Arai. We acknowledge that they make the most safety-focused and best quality helmets on the market. An Arai helmet always feels a little bit special. But given that there are so many things that Arai will not build into their helmets, their range is pretty small these days. For us, that range consists of the Concept XE, the Quantec and the Tour X5. Now, the RX7 is Arai's most famous helmet, perhaps, but of course it's a bit sporty for us here at Moto Legends. Now, if there is a new helmet expected from the Japanese company in 2025, it wasn't on display on the stand. And so all we got to see was some new colourways for the 3 models that we do currently offer. And that was disappointing perhaps, but what you need to understand is that Arai measures progress on a different timescale to most brands. Arai doesn't change overnight. Our visit to the XPD stand was one of the most interesting of the show for us. XPD is basically Spidi's footwear brand. Now, in an agreement with Sidi many years ago, Spidi agreed to find a new name for their boots. That name was XPD. And if you say that fast, you'll understand how they arrived at the name. Now, a couple of years ago, Spidi took on the head designer from another well-known motorcycle footwear brand, but they gave him a very open brief. No compromises were to be brooked in turning XPD into a world-class footwear manufacturer. Now, on their stand, we got to spend a fair amount of time with the aforementioned designer, who explained in some detail how their boots were put together and what he was able to build into his boots that the other brands, or most other brands, don't. Now, I'm a bit of a shoe dog, so was really interested to learn about their new boots. And even though I've got to admit I didn't understand everything I was told, I came away impressed. When it comes to talking about these boots at a later date, I will endeavour to explain some of the technical details, but suffice it to say that we think XPD's new boots are going to be a step up from the usual suspects. Now, we knew some of the new boots for 2025 already because we had been over to Spidi in Italy earlier in the year, but we've decided to add a few more styles to our range, having had the opportunity to learn more about them from the man himself. From our perspective, the XPD range is very exciting. We will, though, I'm afraid, upset Spidi on one particular boot. It's a boot that they thought was very special. I have to say I thought it was ugly, and personally I'd rather give up biking than ride in a pair. But of course, that might just be me. The truth is that here at Moto Legends we sell very few standalone Senna comms units. In fact, whenever anybody in the shop decides that they do not want an integrated solution, we tend to recommend a UCOM unit, as it's still Senna based, but it has a much lower profile on the side of the helmet, and it is waterproof rated, which many Senna comms units are not. On their stand at the show, at the EICMA show, Senna was proudly displaying its latest 60S comms. Now, I'm sure it's absolutely brilliant. It will probably be able to turn the TV on for you before you get home of an evening. But it's a huge lump that you have to stick on the side of your helmet, and that huge lump is going to generate a minor gale in your ear. The unit comes with changeable colour-coded outer panels to match your helmet or your bike. Now, I say nothing. But in truth, this is probably going to be a major selling point because of one thing I am sure, and it's that most motorcyclists who buy the 60S will not be able to use half its features. Certainly not if most of our customers are anything to go by. As everybody knows, we are the CLIM people. We do not love everything they do, but a lot of it we do, and some of it we really, really do. Now, CLIM has become a regular fixture at EICMA because, buried deep in the Midwest, this is one of the few opportunities that they have to present their new stuff to the rest of the world. Again, there was not a lot on the CLIM stand that we hadn't seen because we visited their European headquarters in Austria a couple of months ago to look at the new 2025 collection. But we were put under a strict embargo not to talk about the new collection. Only those items, we were told, that appeared at EICMA would we be able to tell our customers about, even though we're not going to see, of course, any of these new styles until at least the spring of 2025. But for that reason, we were keen to get on their stand to see the lines that they had put into the public domain, which means that now, for the first time, we can tell you about some of the stuff that's coming down the line. One of the most important new products that CLIM launched at the show is a super light Gore-Tex suit called the Rally. Indeed, CLIM has told us that the suit's been designed very much with international rallying in mind, even though, like us, they realise that very few buyers will actually find themselves flying across the dunes in the desert at 90 miles an hour. Now, the suit's got that classic, relaxed CLIM fit. It's really well vented, but it's designed to be worn over separate body armour. In fact, the suit does not have pockets to take armour. The only way that you can ride in this suit is to wear a body armour suit beneath it. Now, as it's not really designed for the road, it is not CE rated, and that is going to concern some people. But what I can tell you is that a lot of the outer material is Veteran, and Veteran is the fabric that CLIM uses for the AAA rated Badlands Pro. So I think one can be fairly confident that if it were to be tested, it would pass at least the AA level. Now, the suit is incredibly expensive. It will be CLIM's most expensive suit, but I suppose you would probably not have expected anything less. Another biggie at the show was the new Krios Pro helmet, although it doesn't go under the name Krios Pro because I think they are carrying on with the old Krios Pro, so they've given the new Krios Pro a different name. The new helmet addresses a number of criticisms of the old Krios. It now comes in 3 shell sizes rather than 2, and that's going to help the fit a lot, and the interior feels much more supportive. Again, as with the old Krios, the new helmet is pretty trick, but its increased price makes it one of the most expensive off-road helmets on the market. Now, we have always opined that the Krios Pro works well off-road, not so well on it. We'll have to see if the new one is any better. For now, the new helmet comes in just plain colours. In the first year, it will only be available in plain colours, which is a shame. I think that plain colours is not what most people are going to want. We also have a feeling that the helmet's going to look a little bit more premium in its graphic treatments. Now, there's a new Baja S4 suit for 2025. I've got to say that offhand, I can't remember all of the upgrades, but there are more than a few. Just to remind you, the Baja is a kind of Marrakesh on steroids. It flows more air than the Marrakesh, and it's more protective. I suppose it embodies more of a biker look, more of a bikey look than the laid-back Marrakesh, but the fact is that it's less easy to wear and less comfortable than our favourite jacket. Now, for this season, for the first time, there's a new ladies version of the Baja S4. It's called the Savona. And as with the Baja, it's for those who buy into the layering principle. Now, talking of layering, we have at last been successful in getting CLIM to produce a ladies Zephyr. I think that's going to be hugely popular, especially as it comes with stretch built into the outer material. What it means is that riding in the Marrakesh is going to be much more comfortable, but of course you can wear the Zephyr beneath any garment and it will always increase your body temperature. Now, there's a very nice new non-waterproof boot with a BOA lacing system. It's called the Ridgeline 2. It's called the Ridgeline 2 at present, but by the time it comes out, it might just be called the Ridgeline. Obviously, it's going to replace the existing Ridgeline. There's also a very funky new ladies salopette that Sarah likes a lot, but she's not quite sure how many other ladies will. Lastly, we'll be taking on a new jacket called the Induction Pro. This jacket is very much in the mould of the Marrakesh. It is, I think, a little bit more structured than the Marrakesh, but probably a little bit less stretchy. Actually, we hadn't really intended to visit the D3O stand, but we had agreed to meet the Roker boys there at the end of the day for a chat. We had not expected there to be anything new on the stand, but what became clear was that D3O has actually developed a totally new range of armour. Even though certainly nobody at D3O is ever going to admit this, we are more than convinced that this armour has been brought to market to head off a very similar product from a potential competitor. And as far as we're concerned, that's fair enough. This is business. D3O is the market leader, and one would expect them to assertively defend their position. The company has spent many years building their proposition, and anybody who takes them on should be in no doubt of the enormity of the task. Anyway, this new armour is lighter and much more breathable than Ghost. The new armour goes under the name of Diablo, and it comes in two forms. There's a flat armour and a very slightly formed version. In recent years, flat and Ghost armour has become very much the go-to option to put into jeans or other lightweight garments. But we reckon that with Diablo, you might be better off with this slightly curved stuff. It's so flexible and soft that comfort will not be a factor, but we reckon that the way the curved stuff will cup the knee will hold the armour better in place, and it will actually create less of an outline. Now, we do not know, unfortunately, when the new armour will be coming to market. It's a bit special, although we think that the demand will very much be for the level 2 stuff because, frankly, it's probably lighter and more flexible than anybody else's level 1 armour. And if you can get level 2 protection with armour that wears like level 1 armour, well, why wouldn't you? Well, I hope you found that interesting. I've got to say that this still wasn't a vintage year for EICMA, even though the show was definitely bigger and better than it's been in some years. Truth be told, we didn't see a whole lot of gear at the show that we didn't already know about, but that's not the real reason we go to Milan. More important for us are the conversations we have. We're perhaps just a little bit more proactive than most retailers, who often seem to wait for the manufacturers and distributors to come to them, and for new gear to just land on their doorsteps. But we like to get ahead of the curve to learn about new trends and about new gear, and to meet the people who have brought it to market. This, in our view, puts us in a better position to decide what we reckon is going to work best in the coming years, both for us and for our customers. And on that basis, despite a significant number of absentees this year, the show once again delivered for us. Now, I'm personally, as a result of the show, very excited about a number of the new products that we'll be offering in 2025. Got to say that we just enjoy visiting EICMA. We always come away from our visit more enthused about our prospects for the coming year. We'll definitely be going back next year. In fact, our hotel is already booked.